I'm Christy Harms. Thank you guys for joining. We're going to be talking about tank transfer today. Things that you always want to keep in mind anytime that you're on a fire scene are going to be, your first thing is going to be safety precaution. So I always want to keep that in mind. Today we're going to be learning how to appropriately place an apparatus, what the proper discharges are for your initial attack line, how you're going to receive a tank transfer from the second in backup engine, transitioning to a hydrant water supply, and then ultimately creating the dual pumping, which is the ultimate goal, so that you have water throughout the full box alarm. So, tank transfer. Just so that we're all on the same page, we're going to be talking about, anytime that I talk about the attack engine, it's going to be the first in engine, and the backup engine will be the second in engine. So we arrived to a structure fire, and this is how most of our structure fires, has this been your experience so far? Going to a fire, is this what you normally see?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
We want someone's life just ruined so we can have fun.
All right, so we arrived to a structure fire. If you were arriving on scene, what's the first thing that you think you do as the driver when you pull up to the scene? Can you take a quick guess?
We need to put the air brake on.
Good. But before then, we want to go ahead and we want to make sure that we pull past the structure to park. So it's one of the first things that we learn in the relief driver class is that you always want to pull past. And could you take a quick guess as to why, even though the screen tells you why?
You know why, Bill?
To see as much of the structure as possible.
Yeah, so ultimately when you pull up, you're gonna be driving in and you'll see one side as you pull up, you'll see the front side as you pull, but then you want to pull past and then you'll be able to see ultimately three sides. So this talks about just the engine officer being able to see at least three sides, but we're all going onto the scene and we all want to make sure that we all have situational awareness. And so this will allow everybody in the apparatus to see all three sides of the engine. So that's something that we want to keep in mind for just firefighters in the back, keeping that situational awareness up. So three sides, and then that last part is to keep an open area for second in arriving units and, or I guess, the rest of the units that are going to be arriving. And can you think of one reason as to why which apparatus might be most important to keep room for at the front of the structure?
That would be the aerial apparatus.
Good. Yes. So an air apparatus, and that way, well, actually, would you like to explain? Do you know why?
Yes, that's because we have a lot more length of hose than they have of ladders.
Excellent. You've been reading your policies.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, very good. Yes, so that way they have the ability to extend the ladder if they need to, as well as they have a few more ladders than we do on our apparatus, so they can quickly access those and take them straight to the fire. So also, per policy, like you were saying, if a fire hydrant, so if you pull up and as you're pulling up, you see on your way in, or Dilworth's in the back and he's actually looking on the streets and he notices that we have a fire hydrant close by this house or the structure that's on fire. Keep that in mind that if it's within 100 yards that you can go ahead and hook up to a hydrant. So everything that we're teaching today is tank transfer, but you wouldn't necessarily need to tank transfer if there's a hydrant nearby. That first in driver is going to go ahead and hook up to a hydrant, and then the second in, that backup driver that we're going to be talking about soon, they would help you and assist you on hooking up to the hydrant. So just keep that in mind. So that's kind of the side note. All right, so you're exactly right. So we pull past the apparatus, and the very first thing is to pull that engine brake. So that's a safety factor. So not necessarily today while we're doing the presentation, but when we're doing this in practice or at an actual structure, making sure that we pull that air brake. And I didn't think that this was actually something that happened, but I guess people that have been in much longer than I have actually seen engines roll down a hill or roll whatever, somebody has to jump in and actually, and so pulling that air brake is hugely important. After that, you're going to pull that e-brake, you're going to put it in neutral, you're going to put it into pump gear, so you're going to pull one click, pause for a second, pull another click, pause, then you're going to go ahead and hit drive, and as you're getting out of the apparatus, you're going to double check that you get 2 green lights before you exit the apparatus, just to make sure that you know it's fully in pump gear. As soon as you jump out of the apparatus, you're going to go ahead, close the door, and throw your wheel chocks down. So again, second form of safety, and you're knowing that whenever you put this into pump gear, that whatever, if the engine were to surge or the pump were to surge or anything like that, you have a second way of making sure that it was all, everything was good and in a safe, controlled manner. All right, so pump panel. So our pump panel, this is a picture of a side panel, but this is how a lot of the engines are moving to. Whether you have, whether you're actually on a side mount or a, what am I trying to say, top mount? Mid mount, thank you, mid mount pump, then this is where you're going to spend most of your time as that driver operator. So you get up to the pump panel and you're going to go ahead and you're going to pull that tank pump lever. You're going to prime your pump, but keep in mind that a lot of the engine, especially the ones that we've all been practicing on an AFD, that primer doesn't necessarily work. So you can, as you pull that tank to pump, and whenever you're going to put it into, and you're going to go ahead and press the preset button, you may not have a good prime. So the way that you can go ahead and get a prime is you can crack the resert, that tank fill resert, crack it. That will allow water to come in, it'll give you a prime, and then go ahead and don't forget to close it, because you want to be able to expel a full amount of all the PSI that you're able to, all the GPM you're able to. So you're going to pull your tank pump, you're going to maybe crack that resert, that tank fill resert to create a prime, close it, and then you're going to go ahead and push your preset button. So all the AFD engines are set to do 25 PSI over the rated discharge that you're going to be pumping to. So that means that all of ours are set for 150 PSI. So when you hit that preset, just double check your main discharge gauge that it reads 150, and then you're in business. And those are your first actions that you'll take when you jump on the pump panel. The next thing you're going to do is the tailboard's going to pull that rack line, so you're going to double, triple check, quadruple check to see which one they pulled, whether it's the top or the bottom one, and then go ahead and just kind of hover over that lever and be ready to pull it whenever they call for water. So they're going to call for water, you're going to go ahead and then set your individual discharge gauge for 125, and then you're going to allow them to flow it, double check that it's set at 125, and go ahead and crank down and lock that discharge out. You guys have any questions so far? Cool. So now, you're using your tank water. So how many gallons do we have on our apparatus? 1,000 gallons. So 1,000 gallons. So we have a larger tank than most of them, because we're kind of out on the outskirts in the county. But anyway, we still know that that's still a finite amount of water, no matter what amount of gallons that your tank ends up holding. So you're just going to continue to monitor your water level. You're going to continue to monitor your gauge, making sure that your individual discharge, for any reason, it stays at that 125, and then double, triple check and make sure you're watching as your water is expelled, depending on if we're blitzing or if we're just using a rack line, if they are going in and using a bunch of water. And then you're going to prepare for that backup engine to go ahead and come to the scene. So things that you can be doing now, you've got your attack line charged. You're going to go ahead and grab your 50-foot section of 3-inch green, your green 50-foot section of 3-inch, and you're going to attach the male end to the auxiliary inlet. So there's your auxiliary inlet, like the picture shows, and you're going to attach the male end. A good way of practicing this is to go ahead, attach the male end, and just set it down on the ground. And this is because you don't know whether the backup engine's going to nose in or they're going to come from behind. So if you set it down in front of you right there, then when the second in engine, no matter what, is going to tie in face to face. So they're going to come and they're going to check in with you face to face and ask you what you need. So when you do that, then they're going to then be able to take that female end and attach it to their discharge outlet, and they can either walk it to the front of your engine or the back of your engine, but that way you set them up for success to be able to do that. So just kind of a good rule of thumb to keep in mind for that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Now, water's going to be coming from that backup engine. So they're going to be sending you water out of their discharge, and you want to make sure that you're ready to receive it. So you've got yours hooked into your auxiliary intake, and then you want to make sure once they start sending you water, you're going to go ahead and bleed that off. Then you're going to open up your auxiliary intake. so that you're able to. So that could be on a reserve, it could be where you actually are cranking that open, or ours has just a lever on up top. You're going to open that up, and that's going to allow you to receive their water and help you to fill up your tank. And just make sure that when you're doing that you also open up your tank fill. So you're receiving their water, and you're going to open up that tank fill. It actually is going to start filling up our tank, and then we're still able to continue to supply that attack line with seamlessly, where there's no transition of losing any water to the attack line that goes inside. As your tank's being filled up, you want to go ahead and set up and prepare yourself to receive hydrant water. So that hydrant, whether it be whatever direction I guess that's coming from, or whatever makes most sense, grab the yellow 25-foot 5-inch, and you're going to throw that out there. You're going to attach it to your main intake, and then you're going to grab your manifold, and you're going to set it with fingers towards you, and you're going to go ahead and attach that, and you're basically saying, hey, here's my line. I need water. As soon as that third engine brings you water, you're going to have it all set up so that they can attach it, and they know exactly where yours is. You're basically showing them that this is where you want it attached, and then they're going to set you up for success in that regard. So you're getting that all set up, you've deployed all that, and you're basically making good use of your time. At this time, you could, it's not in this slide, but you could then go ahead, and you have that second engine with you. They may be pulling a backup line, so you could go ahead and you could give them water on that second backup line at this time also. This is a key point, so whenever that second engine comes in and they've got everything attached, you want to make sure, and they have given you all of their water, and you want to go ahead and close down that auxiliary intake. And we'll get more into that into the next lesson, so we won't talk too much about it, but it's a really key point because you're setting them up for success when you do that. So you've opened it up to receive their water, you've opened up your tank fill to receive water. As soon as they've given you all of their water, you want to make sure and close that so that you're then making sure to set them up for the success for the steps that they have to take as a second engine. One little caveat that I wanted to make sure, whenever you do open up your auxiliary and you open up your tank fill, make sure that you do it in a manner to where you keep your residual at 50 psi. So that's a big thing too. So just keeping that auxiliary at maintaining 50 psi. The reason you're doing that is you're not causing a cavitation of the backup engine's pump when you do that. So now you're receiving hydrant water. They hook it up, they bring it to the manifold, and as they bring that water to you, you just want to double check on the manifold before you open it up what that psi number is, and that's going to be your static. Here, I'll go to the next slide. But it's your static pressure. So your static pressure is going to be really important for you to have for later on down the road whenever you're getting your hydraulic chart out and you're having to give command more information. You need to know your static pressure to have a better gauge on your residual pressure, and then sharing all the calculations with command. So make sure, get that static pressure before you open up the manifold, and now you're on hydrant supply. So at this point, you need to go ahead and state it to command. So you're letting command know you're on hydrant supply, and you're letting them also know that what your static pressure is. So you're just basically double checking to make sure you have that. Yeah. So that's basically stating that. Now you have your hydrant supply. You are going to refill your tank, and then you are going to, you've refilled your tank, so you've opened that tank fill. You've refilled your tank with that hydrant supply. You're still connected to the backup engine. So you're connected now intake to intake with the backup engine. And this is what you're going to end up doing is you're going to make sure your fill, you're going to close that tank fill, and then all the water that's coming in from the hydrant is going to be supplying your attack line, but it's also going to be sending water back through the intake to intake, that 50-foot section of 3-inch to the backup line, and you're now going to allow them to be full, so that if they end up needing to be used as RIC later on in the box, that they're set up for success and they have a full tank so they can be used for RIC. So again, that's just a key point on that. You are just setting it up, and the main thing with that is just kind of keeping in mind you may hear dual pumping from command, and that's really all that is you're connecting intake to intake, and everybody's now full of water using the hydrant to supply whatever attack lines are coming off of your engine. That is the end of the presentation at this point. thank you for sitting through it, number one. But do you guys have any questions for me on that, on tank transfer?
Dual pumping is when did you say it's when it's intake to intake?
It
And
is.
there's water flowing?
There is, yep.
Okay.
Intake to intake and water flowing. Have you guys experienced, whenever you are dual pumping, do you guys normally close your tank to pump, or do you keep it open? What's your rule of practice on that?
Let me think about that for a second. Why tank to pump is open?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. And so,
I don't ever close it.
yeah, which I think is a great rule of thumb, because
It's
Then-
it's just a safety factor.
Correct.
Built-in safety factor.
so that way, for any reason,
Yeah.
the hydrogen supply gets
You
cut
still
off,
have tank water then.
and your guys inside still have water,
Right.
at least the amount that's in your tank, so.
Right.
Cool, that's something that I have learned also, that I think is a good rule of thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Dilworth, do you have any questions at all?
So when you hook up the 3-inch, you leave it enrolled so that the second an engine can take it to the front and the back of the engine. Do you just place the manifold out? Just in your pony section of 5-inch, you just put the manifold out, and then they just come hook it up for you?
Yeah, so
Right.
I've got the 5-inch rolled out, I've got it connected to my main intake, and then I've connected the manifold to that pony section, and then I just leave it out there.
Because then they can hand jack the 5-inch to where the manifold
Yeah, a lot of
is.
times that's
Yeah.
the third and engine people doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, cool.
and, yep.
Making sure.
All right, last quick question.
Who's that?
Do you know who this is?
I didn't know.
Who is that, Dilworth?
I don't know.
I know who it is.
Who is it?
It's Ernest Tubb.
Congratulations.
Look at that.
Yeah,
Do I get points?
you do get bonus points for that.
All right.
All right, well, thank you guys so much again for sitting and taking this course.
Thank you.
Yeah, put in your practice next week.